The massive ships appeared without warning. One moment, the sky over New York was clear and blue. The next moment, darkness fell as enormous vessels blocked out the sun. The same scene repeated across the planet. Beijing, Moscow, Mumbai, London, São Paulo. Every major city on Earth suddenly found itself under shadow. General Vexithar stood on the command deck of his flagship, looking down at the blue planet below. His three eyes studied the primitive world with satisfaction. This would be an easy conquest. The Krithian hegemony had conquered 47 star systems, and this would be the 48th. His tactical officer had already presented the intelligence report. Humans were soft creatures. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. They couldn't even survive in their own oceans without equipment. Better yet, they were divided into hundreds of competing nations. They spent more time fighting each other than advancing their technology. "Begin the operation," Vexthar ordered. The first strikes were precise and devastating. Orbital beams of concentrated energy lanced down from space. Military bases across Earth erupted in flames. Missile silos were destroyed before they could launch. Air Force installations vanished in seconds. The Krithians had studied human warfare and knew exactly where to strike. Within 3 hours, Earth's major military capabilities were crippled. Then came the message. It broadcast simultaneously on every television, radio, and computer screen on the planet. Vexthar's face appeared, translated into every human language. "People of Earth," he announced, "your military forces have been neutralized. Further resistance is pointless. You will surrender immediately and accept assimilation into the Krithian hegemony. Your leaders have 24 hours to respond. Failure to comply will result in the destruction of your largest population centers." In emergency bunkers and government buildings around the world, human leaders stared at the broadcast in shock and horror. The President of the United States sat in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by generals and advisors. Across the ocean, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom convened Parliament. In China, the Premier called together the Communist Party leadership. Every nation faced the same impossible choice. The first day passed in chaos. Panic swept through cities. Some people fled to the countryside. Others stayed in their homes, too frightened to move. But something else was happening too. Something the Krithians didn't expect. Soldiers who survived the initial strikes didn't run. They regrouped. They gathered weapons and equipment that still worked. Military engineers studied the wreckage of Krithian attack drones that had crashed. Police officers organized civilians into emergency response teams. In basements and garages, people who knew about electronics and engineering started taking apart Krithian technology, trying to understand it. 24 hours after the invasion began, Vexthar landed his personal shuttle in Geneva. The United Nations building still stood, though several nearby structures were burning. He walked into the assembly hall with a dozen armed guards. The representatives of Earth's nations were waiting. Vexthar expected to see fear. He expected tears and begging. Instead, he saw anger. The Secretary General stood to address him. She was an older woman from Brazil, and her voice was steady. "We have discussed your demands," she said. "The nations of Earth have reached a unanimous decision." Vexthar's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Unanimous? You primitives can't even agree on trade policies. What decision could you possibly reach together?" "We refuse," she said simply. Vexthar laughed. It was a harsh chittering sound. "You refuse? You have no weapons that can harm my ships. You have no way to reach us in orbit. Your military is destroyed. On what basis do you refuse?" A man stood up from the Russian delegation. He was old, with scars on his face from some past war. "You have made a terrible mistake," he said quietly. "You see our divisions and think we are weak. You see our conflicts and think we don't know how to fight. But you don't understand humans. We don't know how to surrender. We barely know how to stop fighting each other." Vexthar's amusement faded. "Then you choose extinction." "No," the Secretary General said. "We choose war." Vexthar left the building and returned to his shuttle. As it lifted off, he contacted his command ship. "Prepare to demonstrate our power. Destroy one city as an example. Make it quick." But before his ships could fire, alarms began sounding. Across the planet, Krithian landing parties were under attack. In New York, a patrol was destroyed by a makeshift explosive device hidden in a subway tunnel. In Moscow, snipers killed 3 Krithian soldiers from a kilometer away. In Mumbai, An entire platoon vanished into the crowded streets, ambushed by citizens with nothing but knives and determination. Vexithar watched the casualty reports coming in. 23 dead in the first hour, then 37, then 51. These weren't military engagements. These were ambushes, traps, guerrilla attacks. The humans were fighting like nothing he had ever encountered. His tactical officer approached nervously. "General, we've recovered several Crithian devices from destroyed drones. Analysis shows humans have been attempting to reverse engineer our technology." "Impossible," Vexthar snapped. "That would take decades. Our technology is centuries ahead of theirs." "Yes, sir. But the invasion began 5 days ago." Vexithar felt something cold settle in his chest. He looked down at the planet below, at the blue and green world that seemed so peaceful from space. But down there, in the cities and mountains and forests, millions of humans were preparing for war. They were learning. They were adapting. They were refusing to die quietly. For the first time in his long military career, General Vexthar wondered if the Crithian hegemony had made a mistake. 3 weeks into the invasion, the Crithian High Council held an emergency session. They gathered in their grand hall on the capital world of Crith Prime, thousands of light-years from Earth. Supreme Chancellor Mordak listened to the reports with growing disbelief. "Explain this again," he demanded. "How can a primitive species be causing such problems?" General Vexthar stood before the council, his armor scorched from a recent attack. "These humans fight without honor. They don't follow any recognized rules of warfare. They hide among civilians. They attack supply convoys. They use biological weapons, chemical weapons, and cyber attacks. They booby-trap their own buildings and cities. They are savages," another council member said. "Simply eliminate them." "We've tried," Vexthar admitted. "Every time we destroy a resistance cell, 3 more appear. Every time we capture human fighters, others rescue them. They use tactics we've never encountered. On Earth, the war had transformed completely. The initial shock had worn off. Now every human on the planet was part of the resistance in some way. Scientists worked in hidden laboratories, studying captured Crithian equipment. Engineers modified human weapons to be more effective against alien armor. Hackers broke into Crithian communications networks, and ordinary citizens fought back with whatever they could find. In the Amazon rainforest, a Crithian battalion learned a hard lesson. They marched through the jungle, searching for a human base their satellites had detected. The base turned out to be bait. Brazilian special forces, working alongside indigenous warriors who had lived in the jungle for generations, surrounded them. The Crithians never saw their attackers. Arrows tipped with poison flew from the trees. Traps built from local materials caught soldiers. The jungle itself became a weapon. Only 12 Crithians survived out of 200. They stumbled back to their dropship, traumatized and broken. One of them kept muttering the same phrase over and over. The trees were alive. The trees were alive with death. In cities, the fighting was even worse for the occupiers. Tokyo, New York, London, Shanghai. Every urban area became a nightmare. Crithian soldiers couldn't tell civilians from fighters. A shopkeeper might be a sniper. A child might be carrying explosives. A peaceful street might hide 1,000 ambush points. The Crithians called it Earth Syndrome. Their soldiers started breaking down mentally. They became paranoid, jumping at shadows. They refused to leave their fortified positions. Some simply stopped fighting altogether, paralyzed by fear. Meanwhile, humanity was learning fast. Every piece of Crithian technology that fell into human hands was studied and copied. Scientists discovered that Crithian energy shields had a specific frequency weakness. Engineers found that Crithian power cores could be overloaded with electromagnetic pulses. Programmers learned to hack Crithian computer systems. The United Nations had transformed into something new. All the old conflicts between nations were put aside. Former enemies now shared everything: intelligence, weapons, technology, strategies. American scientists worked with Russian engineers. Chinese military strategists coordinated with European special forces. African nations provided resources and training grounds. South American countries became supply hubs. For the first time in human history, Earth spoke with one voice. General Vexithar made one final attempt at traditional diplomacy. He requested a meeting in Geneva again, this time offering a truce. The human leaders agreed to meet. The convoy of Crithian vehicles rolled through the streets of Geneva. Crowds of humans lined the roads, watching in silence. Vexthar felt uneasy. Something was wrong. The humans were too quiet, too calm. The explosion came without warning. The entire convoy erupted in flames. Missiles planted in buildings along the route fired simultaneously. Vexthar's personal transport was armored enough to survive, but every other vehicle was destroyed. His guards died in seconds. As his damaged transport limped away, Vexthar heard the human broadcasts. They weren't apologizing. They weren't pretending it was an accident. "This is our message to the galaxy," a human voice announced. "You came to our world. You killed our children. You burned our cities. There is no parley. There is no truce. There is only war." The Crithian High Council was outraged. "This violates every civilized standard," they broadcast across the galaxy. "Attacking during peace negotiations is barbaric." The human response was simple. "You invaded our planet. You forfeited civilization when you did that." But the war was about to change in an unexpected way. A human strike team, operating in the occupied zone of North Africa, discovered something valuable. A Crithian research vessel had crashed during the initial invasion. Most of the crew had died in the crash. The survivors had been killed by local resistance fighters. The team searched the ship carefully. Inside, they found something worth more than any weapon. They found navigation computers, star charts, communication codes, trade routes. The entire layout of the Crithian hegemony was stored in those computers. The data was transmitted to military headquarters in the Cheyenne Mountain Complex in Colorado. Earth's War Council, military leaders from every nation, studied the information. They saw the 47 star systems under Crithian control. They saw the supply routes that kept the hegemony running. They saw the weakly defended colony worlds that fed resources to the Crithian war machine. Admiral Chen Wei of China spoke first. "We've been fighting defensively. We've been fighting to survive." General Sarah Martinez of the United States nodded. "But we have their ships now. The ones we've captured and repaired. We have their technology." Colonel Andrei Volkov of Russia smiled grimly. "And we have their navigation data." The decision was unanimous. If the Crithians wanted war, humanity would bring war to them. Not on Earth, on their worlds, in their space, using their own tactics against them. 2 months after the invasion began, a Crithian mining colony in the Proxima Centauri system received an unexpected visitor. A ship appeared on their sensors. It was broadcasting Crithian identification codes. The colony's defense coordinator cleared it to land, assuming it was a supply vessel. It wasn't. The ship landed in the center of the colony. Its doors opened. Human soldiers poured out, armed with modified Crithian weapons and wearing captured armor. The colony's small security force was overwhelmed in minutes. The humans moved with precision and speed, securing the facility before anyone could send a distress signal. When the signal finally went out, it wasn't a call for help. It was a human broadcast. "This is Earth, we're coming." The news of the Proxima attack spread through the Crithian hegemony like wildfire. The impossible had happened. The primitives from Earth had left their planet. They had crossed the stars. They had attacked a Crithian colony and won. Supreme Chancellor Mordak was furious. "How did they get faster than light technology so quickly? We've been monitoring their progress. They shouldn't have achieved this for another 100 years. They captured our ships," an advisor explained nervously. "They studied them. They reverse-engineered our FTL drives. And then they improved them." "Improved them?" Mordak's voice was dangerous. "Their version is 30% more efficient than ours. We don't understand how they did it." Across the galaxy, other civilizations were watching with interest. The Vryn Collective, the Tal Shiar Empire, the United Confederacy, all the major powers had heard about Earth. Most had dismissed the Crithian invasion as a minor colonial operation. Now they were paying attention. A primitive species had fought back. Not just fought back, they had taken the war to their invaders. This had never happened before. On Earth, humanity celebrated their first interstellar victory. But the celebration was brief. Everyone knew the Crithians would respond with overwhelming force. They were right. Supreme Chancellor Mordak assembled the largest military fleet in Crithian history. 1,000 warships, enough firepower to crack a planet's crust, enough soldiers to occupy a dozen worlds, all of it aimed at one target: Earth. "This primitive world will be sterilized," Mordak announced to his people. "They will serve as an example to the galaxy. This is what happens when you resist the hegemony. The fleet took 2 months to assemble. During that time, humanity wasn't idle. Every factory on Earth was converted to war production. Shipyards that once built cruise liners now built warships. Car factories made missiles. Computer companies designed targeting systems. Earth's orbital space was filled with defense platforms, weapon satellites, and minefields. The moon became a massive fortress. Nuclear weapons banned for decades were brought back into production, not for use on Earth but for use in space. Humanity was preparing for Armageddon. General Vexithar commanded the invasion fleet personally. He wanted to finish what he started. As the 1,000 ships approached Earth's solar system, he felt confident. No force in the galaxy could stand against this armada. Deploy in standard formation, he ordered. We'll sweep aside their defenses and begin orbital bombardment. But as the fleet entered the solar system, something unexpected happened. Alarms screamed across every ship. The asteroid belt was moving. Humanity had spent 2 months preparing a surprise. They had placed thousands of nuclear warheads throughout the asteroid belt, each one hidden inside a hollowed-out rock. As the Crithian fleet passed through, the asteroids exploded. Not a few. All of them, simultaneously. The explosion was visible from Earth, a flash of light that briefly outshone the sun. When it faded, a quarter of the Crithian fleet was gone. Destroyed, vaporized, evasive maneuvers. Vexthar roared, but the attack wasn't over. From the moon, massive railguns fired. These weren't traditional weapons. They were magnetic accelerators that launched dense metal projectiles at incredible speeds. No shields, no explosions. Just solid metal moving at a significant fraction of the speed of light. Crithian ships began to die. The projectiles punched through armor like paper. Ships that had survived the nuclear minefield were torn apart by the railgun strikes. "Return fire," Vexthar commanded. "Destroy their moon base." The Crithian fleet launched a devastating barrage. Energy beams and missiles rained down on the lunar surface. Human defenses took terrible damage. Bases were destroyed. Thousands of soldiers died. But the railguns kept firing. Then Earth's fleet arrived. It wasn't impressive by Crithian standards. Maybe 200 ships cobbled together from captured technology and human engineering, but they fought with a ferocity that shocked the Crithians. Human tactics were unpredictable. They didn't follow standard battle formations. They used kamikaze attacks, ramming damaged ships into Crithian vessels. They targeted command ships specifically, ignoring military protocol. They used cyber warfare to disable enemy systems. They fought dirty, mean, and without mercy. Admiral Martinez commanded the human fleet from her flagship, the Enterprise. All ships focus fire on their command carrier. Take down their leadership. 50 human ships concentrated their fire on Vexthar's flagship. The shields held for a moment, then collapsed. The hull began to breach. "Retreat," Vexthar ordered desperately. "All ships retreat." But retreating wasn't simple. Human ships pursued them, firing constantly. Mines in the outer solar system claimed more victims. By the time the Crithian fleet reached safe FTL distance, they had lost 600 ships out of 1,000. It was the worst military disaster in Crithian history. Vexthar sat in his damaged command chair, staring at the casualty reports. 600 ships, 300,000 soldiers. Dead. Lost. Defeated by a species that couldn't even leave their solar system a year ago. A transmission came through, broadcasting on all Crithian military frequencies. It was a human woman's voice, speaking in perfect Crithian. "This is Admiral Sarah Martinez of the Earth Defense Force. We are transmitting this message to all Crithian forces. You invaded our world. You killed our people. You threatened our children. This is your only warning. Leave human space. Leave our solar system. Leave us alone. If you return, we will not stop at defense. We will dismantle your empire, world by world, ship by ship, until nothing remains but the memory of your civilization. This is not a threat. This is a promise." The transmission ended. Supreme Chancellor Mordak watched the same broadcast from his throne room on Krith Prime. Around him, his council members were silent. The unthinkable had happened. The Crithian hegemony, conquerors of 47 worlds, had been defeated. "What do we do?" one council member asked quietly. Mordak had no answer. For the first time in 500 years, the Crithians felt something they hadn't felt since they were a young species fighting for survival on their homeworld. They felt afraid. And they were right to be afraid, because humanity's fleet was already moving. 3 separate human battle groups had left Earth orbit, heading for 3 different Crythian colony worlds. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't going to wait for the next invasion. They were bringing the war to the Crythians. The Council of Civilized Worlds met on the neutral station of Concordia. Representatives from 23 different species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall. They had come to discuss what everyone was calling the human problem. Ambassador Keyleth of the Vryn Collective spoke first. The situation is unprecedented. A newly discovered species has defeated a major galactic power. We must decide how to respond. The Crythian representative, a diplomat named Sharkal, stood with difficulty. His people had been humbled but not broken. These humans are dangerous. They are a plague species. They know only violence and destruction. They must be contained before they spread across the galaxy like a disease. Contained? The Tel'Shir ambassador laughed. They've already captured 8 of your colony worlds in 4 months. How do you propose we contain them? It was true. Humanity's military expansion had been swift and brutal. Every Crythian world they attacked fell within days. Their tactics were ruthless and effective. They studied each target carefully, identified weaknesses, and struck with overwhelming force at the critical points. But something strange was also happening. The human occupations were not cruel. Captured Crythian soldiers were treated well. They were given food, medical care, and even allowed to contact their families. Civilians on conquered worlds were left alone as long as they didn't resist. The humans even helped repair infrastructure they had damaged during the fighting. It confused the Crythians deeply. Why show mercy to your enemies? On Kryth Prime, a xenobiologist named Dr. Ventar had spent months studying everything he could find about humanity. What he discovered terrified him. He requested an emergency meeting with the High Council. I must show you what I've learned, Ventar began, activating a holographic display. We made critical errors in our assessment of Earth. We know they're more advanced than we thought, Supreme Chancellor Mordak said impatiently. No, you don't understand. Earth is what we classify as a Class 12 death world. Only 3 other known worlds in the galaxy rate that high. Earth's gravity is 50% higher than our homeworld. Their atmosphere contains oxygen at toxic levels for most species. Their weather patterns include hurricanes, tornadoes, and temperature extremes that would kill us in minutes. So they come from a harsh world. What does that matter? It matters because it shaped their evolution. Ventar brought up images of Earth's predators: lions, tigers, bears, crocodiles, sharks. Earth has more apex predators per square kilometer than any world we've ever studied. Humans evolved while surrounded by creatures that could kill them easily. They survived by becoming smarter, more adaptable, and more persistent than anything else on their planet. He showed footage from human historical archives, ancient humans tracking prey across vast distances, running for days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. They are persistence predators. They don't have claws or venom. They simply refuse to stop. They outlast their prey. They outlast their enemies. Surely other species have determination, one council member argued. Not like this. Ventar pulled up human military history. Thousands of years of warfare. The Peloponnesian Wars, the Mongol conquests, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Afghanistan, endless conflict. This species has been at war with itself for its entire recorded history. They have perfected warfare over 10,000 years. Every generation learns from the previous one. They have studied strategy, tactics, logistics, and weapons technology longer than most species have had written language. The room fell silent. There's more, Ventar continued. Humans are the only species we've found that domesticates other predators. They keep animals called dogs and cats in their homes. They've formed partnerships with species that could kill them. This shows an unusual ability to understand and work with violent creatures. What are you saying? Mordak demanded. I'm saying we didn't invade a civilization. We woke up a sleeping apex predator. And now it's hunting us. The Crythian High Council finally made a decision. They would sue for peace. But they needed leverage. They needed to understand their enemy better. General Vexthar was captured during a desperate assault on the human colony at Alpha Centauri. His fleet attacked expecting light defenses. Instead, they found a fortress. Humanity had spent 2 years building up the system's defenses. The battle was a massacre. Vexthar's flagship was disabled and he was taken prisoner. He expected execution. He expected torture. Instead, he was brought to a comfortable cell with a bed, food, and water. Human guards checked on him regularly, polite but distant. After a week, human officers came to see him. Admiral Martinez and General Volkov sat across from him in a simple meeting room. "We're not going to kill you," Martinez said. "We're not going to torture you. We're going to give you something more valuable." "What?" Vexthar asked suspiciously. "Understanding." They gave him access to Earth's historical archives, unlimited access, everything humanity had ever recorded about itself. Vexthar spent months watching, reading, studying. He watched footage of World War II. 50 million dead. Cities burned. Entire populations destroyed. The brutality shocked him. Then he watched footage of the same humans years later, helping rebuild the nations they had fought against. American soldiers giving candy to German children. Japanese and American veterans shaking hands decades after the war ended. He watched the Vietnam War. A small country fought the world's most powerful nation to a standstill through sheer determination. He watched humans endure years of brutal conflict, never surrendering. He studied human philosophy. Sun Tzu's Art of War, Clausewitz's On War. Thousands of years of strategic thinking, all freely shared within their culture. He learned about human compassion. Doctors Without Borders, the Red Cross, organizations that helped even their enemies in times of crisis. Slowly, Vexthar began to understand. Humans weren't monsters. They were worse. They were what the Crethians pretended to be, true warriors who understood both the necessity and the cost of violence. After 6 months, he requested to send a message to the Crethian High Council. The humans allowed it. "I was wrong," Vexthar said in the transmission. "We were all wrong. These humans are not savages. They understand warfare better than we ever will. They know when to be brutal and when to be merciful. They know when to fight and when to negotiate. They have spent their entire history learning these lessons." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "We thought we were the predators. We were wrong. We are prey that learned to hunt. But humans? They are born predators who learn to be civilized. That is infinitely more dangerous." The transmission ended. 3 days later, the Crethian hegemony sent a formal request for peace negotiations. But the galaxy's problems with humanity were just beginning. The Treaty of Geneva was signed 5 years after the invasion began. The Crethian hegemony agreed to massive reparations, demilitarization of border systems, and recognition of human sovereignty over 15 star systems. It was a total surrender in all but name. But peace with the Crethians didn't mean peace in the galaxy. 3 major powers watched humanity's rise with growing fear. The Vryn Collective, the Tal Shiar Empire, and the Zorath Federation held a secret meeting on a remote moon. Their conclusion was unanimous. Humanity had to be stopped before they became unstoppable. "They're expanding too quickly," the Vryn ambassador argued. "They've gone from 1 world to 20 in 5 years. In 50 years, they'll control half the galaxy. We must act now," the Tal Shiar representative agreed, "before they're too strong." The Coalition for Galactic Stability was formed. 3 empires combining their military might for one purpose: the elimination of humanity. On Earth, the debate was fierce. President Chen of the United Earth government addressed the General Assembly. "We've won our freedom," she said. "We've secured our borders. Some say we should stop here, build our defenses and leave the rest of the galaxy alone. And what happens when they come for us again?" Admiral Martinez stood from her seat. "The coalition is assembling fleets right now. They're not going to leave us in peace. They're going to attack us because they're afraid of us." "Then maybe we've expanded too fast," a European representative suggested. "Maybe we should show restraint." General Volkov laughed bitterly. "Restraint? We showed restraint for thousands of years while we fought ourselves. The moment we unified, we became strong. That strength is what keeps us alive. The galaxy doesn't respect restraint. It respects power." The debate lasted for weeks. Finally, a decision was made. Humanity would not back down. They would pursue what they called aggressive diplomacy, peace through overwhelming military superiority. The shipyards of Earth, Mars, and the Moon worked without rest. In 5 years, humanity built a fleet of 10,000 warships. It was an impossible achievement by galactic standards. Most species took centuries to build such forces. Humanity did it in half a decade. The coalition struck without warning. Simultaneous attacks on 5 human colony worlds. Civilian targets. Millions dead in the first hours. The coalition commanders believed this would break humanity's will. They believed humans would sue for peace immediately. They were catastrophically wrong. The response from Earth was broadcast across every channel in the galaxy. President Chen's face appeared, and her expression was cold fury. To the Coalition for Galactic Stability, you have killed our children. You have murdered civilians in violation of every law of war. You believe this makes you strong. You believe this makes us afraid. You are wrong. We declare total war against the Vryn Collective, the Tal Shiar Empire, and the Zorath Federation. We will accept nothing less than unconditional surrender. There will be no negotiations. There will be no mercy for your leaders. Your people can choose to surrender or die. Those are your only options. The Coalition had made a critical miscalculation. They thought humanity would respond like other civilized species, with diplomacy, with measured military action, with restraint. Instead, humanity responded with total war. The human military deployed weapons and tactics that had never been seen in galactic warfare. Biological agents designed specifically for Coalition species, cyber weapons that crashed entire planetary computer networks, psychological operations that broke enemy morale before battles even began, and conventional military force that was simply overwhelming. Human fleets didn't follow rules of engagement. They targeted supply lines, destroying the logistics that kept Coalition forces operational. They assassinated military leaders with precision strikes. They turned Coalition species against each other through propaganda and intelligence operations. It was war as humanity had perfected it over 10,000 years. Strategic, ruthless, effective. The Coalition's last stand came at Kelthorax, a massive fortress world. It had been built over centuries, designed to be impregnable. Shields that could withstand any bombardment, weapons that could destroy entire fleets, defenses that went miles underground. Admiral Martinez commanded the human assault personally. 10,000 ships, 5 million soldiers. The largest military operation in human history. The siege lasted 3 weeks. Human forces took horrific casualties. Ships were destroyed by the thousands. Soldiers died in waves attacking the fortress defenses. But humanity never wavered, never retreated, never stopped. On the 21st day, human forces breached the inner fortress. On the 22nd day, the Coalition commanders surrendered. The Treaty of Kelthorax was harsh. The 3 Coalition empires were forced to disarm. Their territories were reduced. They paid enormous reparations, and they acknowledged human sovereignty over 50 star systems. Humanity emerged as the galaxy's dominant military power. The Council of Civilized Worlds met again. This time they offered humanity a seat, not as a junior member, as a permanent member with veto power. President Chen addressed the Council for the first time. We accept your invitation, but we do so with conditions. The galaxy needs new laws, rules that protect developing civilizations from invasion, rules that govern warfare to protect civilians, rules that ensure no species ever faces what we faced. You want to impose human values on the galaxy? The Vryn ambassador asked carefully. We want to impose civilization on the galaxy, Chen corrected. Real civilization. Not just advanced technology, not just peaceful rhetoric, actual moral progress. The reforms took years, but they were implemented. The Geneva Conventions were expanded to cover all species. The Universal Declaration of Sentient Rights was adopted. Protections for developing civilizations were encoded into law, and enforcement was backed by human military might. Former General Vexthar, now an advisor to the Galactic Council, watched these changes with mixed feelings. He had spent the years after his capture studying humanity, and now he served as a bridge between the Crithians and Earth. During a private meeting with Ambassador Martinez, he spoke honestly. My people thought we were the predators. We conquered 47 worlds before we met you. We thought that made us strong. You were strong, Martinez acknowledged. But strength isn't enough. No, Vexthar agreed. Humans taught us that. You're not just warriors. You're survivors. You're adapters. You're teachers and healers and builders. You're everything we pretended to be but never were. We're not perfect, Martinez said quietly. We've made terrible mistakes in our history. But you learn from them. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you terrifying. Years later, a new species entered galactic space. They were aggressive, militaristic, and confident. They studied the major powers and decided to test humanity. They believed humans were overrated. They planned an attack on a human outpost. Their military intelligence officer pulled up the historical files before finalizing the attack plan. The file was simply labeled the Crithian Mistake. He read it carefully. The invasion of Earth, the guerrilla warfare, the Battle of Luna, the fall of Kelthorax. Page after page of detailed military analysis. When he finished, he was pale. He went immediately to his commander. "Sir, I recommend we pursue diplomatic contact instead." "Why?" the commander demanded. "Because humans don't start fights, sir, but they always finish them." The attack plan was canceled. A diplomatic mission was sent instead. Ambassador Martinez met the delegation personally. "Welcome to human space. We look forward to peaceful relations with your people." The delegation's leader bowed respectfully. "As do we, Ambassador. As do we." Later, in her private quarters, Martinez looked out at the stars. 50 human worlds now dotted the galaxy. Thousands of ships protected them. Millions of humans lived among the stars. They hadn't asked for this role. They hadn't wanted to become warriors and conquerors. But the galaxy had come to Earth and forced them to reveal what they truly were. Now the galaxy would have to live with the consequences. Humanity was here. Humanity was strong, and humanity was never going back to being prey. The age of human dominance had begun.